York University, and this is Neal Stephenson. And today we're talking about building an intranet with Liferay, it's an open source portal, to promote employee engagement. So York University, in case you don't know, is a large comprehensive university located in northwest Toronto. And just in fact, a little bit further north and further west is one of the fastest growing areas for student age people in North America. So York has over 54,000 students and around 8,000 faculty and staff. And recently there's been a Creating a Better Workplace initiative, which was set up to establish a continuous improvement model for work practices. And that led to York's first intranet being built with IT, and we're both from the IT group. Yeah, I'm the Director of Applications Integration, and Neal's the manager of, it's the title I gave. It is, yes.
Identity Design.
Integration.
Integration. Systems. We used to be called Dev Team.
So a bit of background, and this is not purely pedantic. A portal we think of as an application framework for integrating information, people, and processes across organizational boundaries. And in fact, 2 or 3 years ago, that's what we thought we were going to build for employees, just a portal. An intranet, by contrast, is a web application created for exclusive use of the employees of an organization. So more about the audience. And the difference will come up in a minute. So in 2007 and 2008, working with Liferay, we built and launched a student portal. That was with version 4 of Liferay. And the usage has grown over time to become part of the standard student experience. And in fact, over the 4 years slightly over 4 years since then, essentially all new students now that are at York have started with the student portal and use it very, very frequently. And that's part of their standard introduction to York. In 2009, we did another one, a prospective student portal, based on a slightly newer version of Liferay, version 5. And then also in that year, we started requirements gathering for faculty and staff portal. Essentially, everybody we consulted with on the student portal said, oh, we should have one of those for ourselves. And that led ultimately to a business case for creating the intranet. 2011, we created a mobile portal, which we actually talked about last year at CANHEIT. And last year, we decided to upgrade to Liferay 6.1. And one of the interesting things about Liferay 6.1 is it's got some social elements that we'll talk about in a bit. One of the things that happened last summer is that discussions around the intranet started to coincide with the notion of cleaning up the main York website. So prospective students, and people have actually done studies on this, use a university's website as the primary source of information to decide whether to consider attending that university. So if you have a horrible website, that will really affect enrollment. However, our site combines information both for prospective and current students, as well as staff and faculty. So there's a lot of content organized there. And in particular, if you take our our global search, Google search engine, and you do a search for HR, instead of getting the courses on HR management from one of our faculties, you get all the benefits forms and information and so on. And so we want to fix that up. So in 2011, the Staff Faculty Portal Project becomes the Staff Faculty Intranet Project, which includes moving content. And oddly enough, people seem to be a lot more excited within the institution about hiding that content than they are about providing better services to staff. But whatever works to get it all going.
Engagement, that's where we're at.
Engagement. So the question's for you, and we can do it with show of hands. So how many of you have a staff or faculty portal which is, brings together services but doesn't have much content on it? Okay, so about half maybe? And then, so how many have a staff faculty intranet, which is services, tools, and so on, plus a lot of content? Oh, okay, interesting. So not too many. So a couple of questions. What are the 2 or 3 most important features sort of on your portal or intranet? Anybody?
Pay stubs.
Pay stubs?
Yeah. Like PeopleSoft.
What kind of things in PeopleSoft?
Well, students also.
Okay, so PeopleSoft Access and pay stubs. Anything else? Anything beyond HR?
I'm curious, for the people who put their hands up for portal, how many of them is it just like the PeopleSoft portal running kind of access to standard PeopleSofty things? None? No?
We have a link to Liferay.
Right. Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. Oh.
This is the LMS, the PeopleSoft apps, all that stuff is accessible now in place, plus Google Apps is accessible, plus all the small little web apps that we make. There's no content in terms of a publishing platform.
So,
Collaboration outside of the pieces.
we using it to leverage a single sign-on kind of?
Oh yeah, so it's all CAS enabled, so everything just sort of integrates all those applications.
Right.
But as a thing in itself, there's nothing there.
Oh, okay.
So we did a lot of requirements gathering with HR, the directors and managers in HR, in fall 2009. So we used standard brainstorming, and then we gave them paper prototypes to indicate which features they thought would be most important. And out of that came some basic things: HR profile info, pension and benefits links, submitting claims, training. One of the things that is of particular interest for on the faculty side is there's some mandatory training that we would really like to get our compliance rates up on. And so one of the things that the Intranet will expose is what training you are expected to do and what training you've done. And then learning opportunities, job postings, and then for managers, we know if someone signs in and they're a people manager, we show the status of all of those people, including training. And finally, again, because of this somewhat surprising, really dramatic acceptance of the notion of hiding content, not only have we been able to move all the HR content in, but the HR staff were so enthusiastic about this that they were interested in reformatting their content so it doesn't so much reflect their organizational structure, which of course is the natural thing and pretty much how their site has been organized for the last 10 years, but much more user-centered. So if a staff member wants to take a leave, we just focus on those particular tasks, and then exactly which parts of HR implement those is secondary to the way the content is presented. And in fact, the effort to do that is delayed our launch from February to next week. From marketing, which we've worked with a lot, they have a daily news feed called Wi-Fi, and everybody is going to get that. And then there are also secondary news feeds, York and the Media, Campus Notes, and people can sign up for those or not. And there will be news feeds from across campus and beyond. Again, on a voluntary basis, the employee signs up for that. Targeted and general announcements. So one of the built-in things with Liferay is an announcements portlet. So you can send a general announcement to everybody that there's a weather emergency and the campus is closing. Or based on group information from PeopleSoft, you can send a target announcement to simply members of a particular department or a whole faculty or a union group or any number of groups that we can define through queries on the PeopleSoft data. For faculty and other instructors, my courses, including where those meets are being held and links to the course websites. Library resources, and this we've had a really good integration with library content management. So because for an instructor we know which courses they're taking, we can actually do a query over to library, find out which research guides are appropriate for those courses, and then give links to those. So the instructors can be familiar with those research guides and tell their students about them. And then simple things like campus pay card balances and content, there's a faculty handbook for new faculty members. And then one of the things that's been a challenge in a few ways is taking advantage of Liferay 6.1 to increase social engagement. So this is a bit of a new territory, certainly for the university, to have this kind of open discussion about, well, anything online. So we are allowing people to comment on and rate news articles. On day one, not so much the commenting, but the rating is still going ahead with. Rich personal profiles, so more than just who you are and your phone number and so on, but what you're working on, some of your skills, other things that people can say about themselves. Who knows how discussion forums, so with not having open discussion forums that could just be a platform for ranting, but focus things about computing, good places to eat on campus, things like that. And I'll show a little bit about that. Colleague lists, which are much like functionally like a Facebook or a LinkedIn friend, but so you invite someone to be a colleague, and then over time we'll build out more functionality. But right now you can do status updates that get distributed to all your colleagues, and those can cross departmental boundaries. And then finally, classified ads, which is also a little bit new and somewhat nervous making, but one of the things that, again, we're trying to get people to be engaged in the use of the intranet. So it's a free classified ads, open only to employees. And that was based on an open source project called OS Class.
It was scored really high in survey of things people wanted. I'm completely mystified, but we'll see. I'll tell you next year.
So now we're going to show a little bit of what we built. Are there any questions so far?
No. You all set?
Not quite. We have to connect. Right now, we're going to show you what's on our QA server. And so we have to connect through our VPN for that.
No, not that one. That's way too. It's where I'm supposed to be singing and dancing. But you're lucky I'm not.
Okay.
And it's down. What? No.
Yeah, okay, so we have a bit of a resolution issue here, but we'll show you what's going on. So the idea is, as imagine with a typical portal, there's a search area. So you can search for people, a complete search of the intranet. This is IntelliResponse, which is a natural question answering, and library search, and the whole UARC website, which is a Google search appliance. And then across the top, there's home, which is a number of portlet pages, which are reproduced here. So, and then this is all driven in real time from PeopleSoft. So we have connections from the portlets through PeopleSoft Integration Broker, which is what Neal will talk about. And well, that's my personal information. So.
Go ahead.
But you get the idea. Essentially what we do is we pull information from the HR system to both present it and to use it to customize the display so that we know someone's affiliation, for example, and then we send them directly to their collective agreement or their pension or whatever.
Not because you're in admin, you're seeing some of the other ones, like academic resources will show up the average user who's a staff member and things like that.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things that came up actually in the session I was just in before is that implementing a system can actually show the problems with data. So this was that data management system. And one of the things that we realized from actually a recent project on time and labor and absence management with HR is that we have general problems with HR data. And so a lot of people were mysteriously born on January 1st, 1960. And so one of the things that we really expect this to result in is because people will see their data much more easily, and we are giving them specific instructions on how to go in and fix it, or how to request that it be fixed. And so we really do expect that within a relatively short amount of time, this will actually result in a continuous improvement cycle on the quality of this data.
For most of these tabs, the users don't have control over what portlets are there. The home one, they have complete control. They can delete the portlets they don't want.
Yeah, and so we'll try to get back there. So the introduction to YU Link, that's going to be a video that they can play, and then they can delete the portlet with the X. That's standard Liferay functionality. And then announcements, we expect that to take over some of the burden of emails. And these we feel are more effective in emails because they're specifically for the purpose of communicating with staff, and we can track exactly when they are read and deleted. There's the news. There's some status updates on the right. And there's a tag cloud for what's being talked about within the discussions on the internet. And then I'll just show you one story. And you can see there, we're going to work on with marketing on improving that, and we can just rate it. And so we actually haven't completely figured out with marketing how we're going to use those ratings, but essentially it'll be the top stories of the week sort of feature that will actually encourage readership of the news. And I guess the only other area I'll talk about is the resources. This is the current set of resources that we're going to launch with. So again, for absence, leaves, and accommodations. All of these things have been rewritten so that people can get very action-oriented information as to how to proceed.
And a lot of the data is now structured in templates with fields for meaningful things. So there's 4 sections that are being displayed or not displayed, but there, like who this applies to, whatever else.
And this is in fact a new area of use of Liferay for us. This is using their content management system fairly extensively. In some ways, we would have preferred to just pull information in from WordPress, which is pretty much our corporate standard for content management. It proved problematic to bring in the navigation from WordPress. So this is becoming an alternative for publishing content. And finally, the manager resources. This again is keyed off a PeopleSoft query that this person is a people manager, and so then has access to all of these particular content areas. Okay, are there any questions about this? Yeah.
You mentioned that you're using WordPress as your default CMS. So the data that's displayed in the portal, is that getting pulled in and then stored in the Liferay CMS, or do they have to enter it in to Liferay specifically to get the show?
Yeah, I'll clarify that. There's a couple of different approaches. The news stories are entered in YFile, entered in WordPress for YFile, and then that's pulled into Liferay Content Management, and then that adds the commenting and rating layer. So that allows us to have a public view of the magazine that is not adorned with comments, but then internally, employees can sign in and see the comments and contribute to them and so on. So that's one sample. One approach. And then the other approach is really for the HR content that is done with the Liferay content management system natively. So WordPress is not involved for that. And Liferay content management is somewhat harder to train people on, but not much. It's sort of the difference between half an hour for WordPress and maybe an hour and a half for Liferay, something like that. Yeah.
Before you do the session, there's links there, and page. What about the information? Are you using something like the US or something like that to bring content from PeopleSoft into the asset forms?
No.
No, that content is in Liferay content management. If you're talking about the PeopleSoft, like the My Address and so on, Neal will talk all about that, but it is web services. It's not WSRP, but it is web services.
Where's the question?
Yeah.
So when you have content that you want to publish both on your website and on the internet,
That's a good question. Our current plan, and this is still a plan phase, because almost all the HR information that's gone on is not HR information that anyone desires to leave on the public website. But our plan for that is, because we trained all the HR people in how to do this, is we will still enter it in Liferay, and then we'll probably have a fancy other Liferay running just to extract those content and display them. Right. The news and events are almost all public, and they're being pulled in. But it's only like the HR pages that we were demonstrating there. Some of those, there might be ones like talking about why come work at York, something like that, which would be an HR page. But we probably don't want the complexity of having people learn 2 different systems. And so we'll probably leave them in exactly the same, and then we'll just export it, and it will be available. And there's potentially stuff that should be available both internally and externally. But do the same way. We had a strategy, we haven't completely made it work yet.
No, essentially the deal we have with the union groups, actually, because they're a little worried about all the change, is that content will not be removed from the current site, the current public site, for 90 days after it appears on the internet. The other thing, too, we've heard from the content contributors and maintainers is that they will refuse to basically maintain something in 2 places. So we just have to live.
So reasonable.
Anything else? Okay. So in terms of building this, we've had a number of different approaches. We have a local contractor who's been working on portals for us for a long time, doing requirements gathering and high-level testing. We had a development company that we got through an RFP for architecture and development. And then York IT staff, based on the experience with the student portal, have done system configuration, all the data feeds, including integration with PeopleSoft, project management. And Neal's team did the application of the theme, which we got from one of marketing's agencies. We had another local contractor do the integration of the classified ad application, which is a PHP open source. We had another contractor to do some detailed testing, and then a number of non-IT York staff on communications, branding, organizational change management, and organization of the HR content. We were really lucky to get somebody in the learning and organizational development part of HR who was enthusiastic about reorganizing all of HR's content.
Be quite enthusiastic.
Yes. Any questions about that? Okay. And then finally, the data feeds, the way we did it with PeopleSoft, fortunately, this came on the heels of an integration of a procurement cloud service called SciQuest. And we had a contractor who was specifically brought in to do the integration with Integration Broker, which was actually a pretty nice product from PeopleSoft. And that which is XML based, and Neal talked about that. And so we used a bit of his time at the end of his contract to get us kickstarted, and then we've taken that on ourselves. There's information from the student information system being called in terms of what courses people are teaching, and those are RESTful calls. Also for OneCard, which is our system from Blackboard for the campus meals, and the library is also the same. And I think this is where Neal takes over.
Absolutely. I was kind of curious. Imagine most of you use PeopleSoft. At least we only use it for HR and finance. So everyone, PeopleSoft? Most? No? All right. Those of you who use PeopleSoft, have any of you used Integration Broker? Yeah. For years I'd been fighting getting data in and out of PeopleSoft. And all kinds of DB links, and then making it all work. Oh, it was just horrible. And then they said, "Oh no, you can do this on the web now." I said, "What?" And that led to a whole section. Anyway, this is for those of you who don't know, PeopleSoft. This is Integration Broker. It's a really simple XML. It's a bit weird, and you just post it. It's not kind of straightforward that way, but you post it, and then you get back a wonderful bit of data. This is the answer to that query. It's a little verbose. There's this whole section which is describing the entire record. The PeopleSoft people tell me they can make this go away, but they haven't. And then actually here there's some made up data that I made up. And then down here there's even more saying, "Oh yeah, this was some data I just sent you, and this is when it happened." It's not bad. It contains all the information that I needed, which was really good, because getting information up on the portal about anything is really what our goal is. But and also had a lot of bits in the way. And generally, we like RESTful services. My team does mainly front end stuff. We're really straightforward. We have a cryptographic referential system so that we can get cryptographics to the back, and we're not relying on the portal saying this is this employee. And we like JSON, it's faster, smaller, all the rest, but XML, we're dealing with the portal, XML is everything. And there's some really good things that we like. And of course, talking about PeopleSoft, we're in HR data, it's a little more scary than it should be sometimes.
We have gone through an upgrade of PeopleSoft in this context, so we do have some concern that some of the fields might change.
Everything might change. So one of the things that we decided to do is we put some middleware in between. Portal talks to some middleware that actually talks to PeopleSoft, which is really nice because the portal now, the URLs the portal asks for are really straightforward. They're just go to this middleware and tell me about personal info. It translates it to the XML query, goes off the integration broker, and you start counting the number of layers that are involved in this. And it's a little scary, but it's actually really very fast. And this layer in itself is not adding much. It's a little Python program. The other bit is it gets back that huge payload, removes everything because we did some timing, and we could do that much faster in the Python program than we could do in the Java. And we also could cheat a bit because we know where things are. So that was pretty useful. And it also let us pretend we were still RESTful, so it's good. And so I got the trim the XML. The other really the nice thing about what we did, we learned this with the student portal. We got all of our data back in XML, and we started counting the number of different portlets we'd do, and there was hundreds. And so what we did was we really wrote one portlet, which took XML, applied a style sheet, and rendered it out. And you can do an enormous amount with that. Number one, you can change the biggest problem is, of course, suddenly someone says, oh, I added this one field. And if you're parsing that somehow in some complicated structure, you may be recompiling a portlet. And we have some like that. But if you're using XML, XSLT, and you've written your XSLT, well, just ignore it when it first appears, which is really good. It's best the system doesn't stop working when accidentally some new piece of data gets inserted in. And then you can change the code, do the data. Of course, you can put other HTML elements into the page with that. Also, once you learn the weirdness of how XSLT, anyone work with XSLT? Okay, you know what I mean. Once you kind of grok the XSLT approach to things, you kind of get used to it. It's not the most complicated thing in the world. So that's mostly how we do all of our data in getting to PeopleSoft. The sys, it's homegrown, and so we got to write both ends of the connector, so they kind of work exactly like we wanted them to, and that works really quite well. And for the other data, it was basic XML, and we were styling it as well. Anyone use Solr? Solr, Apache Solr? Oh, pick one. What do you use it for?
This is our Drupal system.
Oh, okay, so indexing documents inside Drupal.
Yeah, the web publishing.
Right, but Solr is a really interesting product. It's an Apache product, and it uses, of course, other Apache products. And it's a full-text search engine. And, you know, when I go full-text search, I start thinking of Google. And, of course, it's a full-text search engine without, it just searches documents, and you feed it. And so you can choose how to feed it. And it can return, you know, XML or JSON to a query, which you can do whatever you want with. Again, if you're getting XML back, we can style it with style sheets back to that magical portlet. But it doesn't know how to crawl, because, you know, what they're saying is we're a search engine. We don't care how you get it. And the data that we do use, so from the portal, and I assume from your Drupal system, you feed it the documents that you want it to search, and then you just have that search. So inside Liferay, which is designed has hooks for easy integration with Solr. So when HR goes and adds that new document that they work on, that immediately gets just shoved into Solr, which searches, indexes it. And so the internal search works like that. It's pretty interesting. But, you know, you can also go and search your web space. We use Google Search Clients at the moment for that. We have a few issues with that. We have an enormous website, and they want a lot of money.
Yeah, essentially we can't afford to crawl the whole thing. So it's probably.
You know, and the results, they're certainly looking okay. We have Nudge, which is it's a very common add-on that people use with Solr. It can go out and crawl for you. So if you want a standard crawl, you can equally well. One of the other interesting things this opportunity presents is to write your own specialized crawler. You know, because you can do anything you want. It's all about feeding the documents to it. It doesn't really matter what. So there's Nudge as well. It's a nice little addition. The other little bit that comes with Solr is Solr uses another Apache project, TCUP, which can read, essentially it can parse, you know, doc files, PDFs, and all the rest. So you can feed Solr most rich text documents, and they'll know what to do with them, which is quite useful. All right, little change tack. So once you got the system running, how do you know it really works? It's always good. We use JMeter. It's fairly straightforward. I'm sure few people use JMeter. Anyone? All right. And pretty much we corrected a basic test of user logging through, provided a bunch of users, different data, and we could check that we were getting back reasonable data. And that's really been useful for testing how big of a system we're going to need. Because, of course, we potentially have a lot of users. And we're also really curious, from the student portal, we had some really interesting setups for Liferay, where the varying CPUs and RAM produced sometimes unexpected performance results. So it gave us a lot of opportunities, since now we're completely virtualized, to just run test after test after test. And so I made a graph. One of my stats profs once said, "Oh, he's making a graph." So I made a graph. It's not a vastly exciting graph. The other important thing stat graph says you should always have one big spike. Because it draws everyone and go, "Oh, look at this, it's a big spike." This is actually not. What we did is we were looking here at 4 CPUs with caching and no caching all that back-end data that we get, and 8 CPUs. And then these are a variety of tasks. This is essentially the log on happening. And then this is the front page loading. This is a great one, 40 seconds. This was on a really fairly small system. That we wouldn't get this, and we were really doing our best to make that a really big spike. And so what you would expect is happening here. The lovely low lines down here are, of course, where you have cache data, and pretty much there's no difference between CPUs in those two cases. No, that's 8 CPUs does certainly a lot better than 4 CPUs we're doing there. And that was interesting. One of the things, really a lot of the lessons learned from this are, one, don't make your landing page really, really heavy. The landing page on the first thing did an enormous number of back-end web services calls to get all the data to construct all those menus, decide which one should show, and all the rest. So that made this pretty heavy. And we were clearing the cache for this, so you were getting really the worst possible results. We're also pointing to our QA PeopleSoft, which is equally well slow. So that was really interesting, but 8 CPUs, you know, had a dramatic speed up, which was weird, and RAM didn't seem to do a lot for us on either of these, though we have changed some of the RAM configurations for the JVM that's improved performance. The performance now is down here. I just like this slide because it's so scary. The other big strategy that you can use, and we haven't got around to, is just pre-caching all the information. It's not going to change in a couple of hours, and refreshing it's probably not that painful. Of course, then you get the lovely performance on here, which is now really nice.
And one of the other things we were grateful for HR taking a more aggressive approach to making the content user-centered. It gave us the 2 months or so to make the speed much, much better. And actually, we had a really good engagement with Liferay itself to do that work. So, some lessons learned, particularly around vendors. Be very demanding with a new vendor, particularly with respect to architecture and build, test, and especially documentation. So, if I were to do it all over again, with our primary vendor, I would have used a small project to evaluate, particularly to set expectations around documentation. Now, the second line, I don't know how many of you have heard this story, but It's now a fairly common one. Van Halen, I guess, rock band, wanted to start touring a lot of secondary and even third level markets. And they had a lot of gear and 2 or 3 tractor trailer loads. And because they had so much gear and because it was so heavy, they had to be really careful about how it was all installed. And so one of the tricks they did, which was pretty brilliant, was to have a very long contract. And one of the clauses in the contract was that in the dressing room for the band, there would be a bowl of M&Ms, but there would be no brown M&Ms in the bowl. And that was like clause 105 of 200. And so the moment they went into the dressing room, they checked for brown M&Ms, and it wasn't just rock star affectation. They realized that if there were brown M&Ms in the bowl, then they hadn't read the whole contract, and there probably would be other things going wrong. And indeed, that's what they found. So the legend has it that when they found the brown M&Ms, they walked out. Indeed, the contract allowed them to walk out with full pay, and apparently they also trashed the dressing room, but that's, I don't know they're allowed to do that. So one of the things, again, I would do differently is make sure that there were specific clauses, probably around documentation, so that you can be really severe with a vendor up front and establish a good relationship or not, and then and continue on with them or not. So, and have a roster of vendors. So if you're doing an RFP for something like this, have it result in a roster of developers that you can use for this kind of work, so you can always have options. Short daily meetings were much better than weekly. We started with weekly, and that was not as nearly as effective as short daily. And unless your model allows long-term maintenance arrangements with vendors, consider training internal or new staff that have basic skills, like for example Java, and focus on getting architectural advice from a vendor. So, and one thing that's really different now than it was when we did the student portal is Liferay has excellent training. So you can actually get on-site training that's good. You can have them go to Liferay training in various places, and you can take someone with Java experience and get them up to speed.
All of our staff who've gone through training just said how good the trainers were, which we don't always get that from people who train. And Liferay itself it's worth mentioning. They're an interesting company because it's small. It's very dedicated to the notion of pure software. They are completely privately held. They resist, almost on ethical reasons, being bought out. And so they're a good company to work with. And in terms of the social intranet, the jury's still out. We had a long discussion with our steering committee about terms of use. We started with them with the stance that they wanted everyone who started using the intranet to accept, click to accept. And over the course of 6 months, that completely changed around to, well, if any problems come up, we'll just say we're going to resolve it with our existing policies and procedures at York. And so that's the way we went, and we'll see how that goes. One thing we did find that we didn't have any existing policies and procedures for is user-contributed content. So when they comment on something, when they add something to their profile, you may need language that deals with situations there. We have some community guidelines, and I won't go into detail about that because we're running out of time. There is a challenge of addressing all audiences with one document, though. Writing a document for all staff and all faculty that addresses them about behavior has been a real challenge. And so our goal really ultimately is to keep it as brief as possible. And I guess this is the point where I'd really like to see if there are any experiences from the audience around community guidelines, particularly dealing with faculty in a sort of open discussion. Has anyone had facilities yet?
We had quite a discussion around the classifieds channel in terms of what implied commitment the university was accepting as part of a classified ad. So we did things like bar ads saying, looking for a ride to Calgary,
Okay.
Where issues where the university might be held accountable. for
Right.
things going wrong.
And what institution is that, sorry?
Saskatchewan.
Ah, great. Anybody else do classifieds or any other kind of open discussion? Yeah?
Classified as well. We used to kind of two things, like religious discussions, commercial advertisements, like that. People write to Calgary if you will pay.
And where are you from?
Yeah.
It's okay in the south of the province, it's not that low.
Any other open discussions? And have any of you tried to move forward with the project on open discussions and then been stopped? Okay. Well, hopefully we'll come back in a year and tell you how that part went. And sorry. Oh. How come you guys never thought of Drupal as your intranet?
What?
Well, do you want to talk about that?
Oh, good, thanks. We don't use Drupal anywhere else beyond it's in one niche place at the moment. So we don't have a lot of experience with it. We primarily use, as we said, WordPress for those kinds of things. I have no particular reason why we didn't use Drupal. We were originally doing a RFP on portals for the students, and we were looking at all the commercial vendors. And when that failed,
2007, yeah.
When that failed, we were really looking for a portal-like product, and so we came across Liferay, or we'd actually come across Liferay before, and then we said, well, why don't we just build it on this and see where it gets us? And I guess it got us here. And so once you're there, we're familiar with the tool set at that point in time. We have good approaches at least approaches we like.
We've been really happy with the scalability of Liferay and the Java platform. It's on the student portal, we get 10,000 visitors a day with no problems at all. So that's one of the answers to the question.
I think that's as good as I got.
And finally, in terms of publicizing the internet, one of the things that can happen with an intranet is it doesn't get a lot of use. And the single best lesson, which we sort of stumbled upon, is hold a contest to name it. And essentially what we did was we went through the leadership in the fall of last year, and they came up with a name which no one much liked. And so there was the Better Workplace Committee actually said, well, let's have a contest. And so the contest was, if you submit the name that most of staff pick as the favorite, you win an iPad mini. And so we got 300 suggestions for names for the intranet, and then the committee picked the best 10 or so, and then those got voted on. We actually got more contest submissions than we got votes on the name. But the benefit had been achieved actually, because in order to name it, they had to understand it. So we had people reading the daily news feed to find out what it was, and that created a buzz about what was coming, and that really worked to get people to be aware of it. And the winner is Ulink, pronounced Ulink, and that's our contact information. We'd be happy to answer any other questions from the audience. Yeah.
How close integrated are you guys to your software and teams like maintenance packs or upgrades or something like that, which will allow whenever have.
Sorry, I didn't catch the first sentence or so.
Oh, sorry. I was asking how closely integrated you guys are with PeopleSoft and how much changes from maintenance packs or upgrades.
Well, one of the advantages the organizational advantages that allowed us to do this more easily is that in my role, the PeopleSoft implementation team reports to me, and so that does help a lot. On the other hand, the HR team, the one that drives the requirements for that team, is in a completely different part of the organization and actually different part of campus. So that makes that harder. But in terms of the operational level stuff, it's very close. In fact, Karen's office is just next to mine. So. But, and although one of the things that we actually are having to deal with there is they typically went from an upgrade cycle of about 2 or 3 years, and now they're going to be applying the bundles pretty much every 6 months or so. So are we done?
Oh, we are done. What will you choose Liferay or PeopleSoft portal?
Oh.
I don't know that we have a vast amount of time to answer that, not that I...
Well, the short version is that their cost and that Oracle actually didn't respond with the PeopleSoft portal to our RFP. So we couldn't have picked it because they didn't respond.
There you go.
Really enough content outside of PeopleSoft work to generate web services and stuff like that. You know, rather than just using PeopleSoft portal, just
Yeah, I would think so. The other thing
Yes.
we can have a little greater influence on the interface.
Yeah.
Right?
In fact, one of the things one of the groups we've been collaborating with, Stanford, is a PeopleSoft shop. They have HR, finance, and campus solutions, and they're refronting everything with Liferay because they're just getting a demand for that better user interface. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you.